BTB listeners, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Listen, if this episode inspires you, do me a favor and take 5 seconds to shoot me a like and subscribe to the podcast. There are several more exciting guests that are in the pipeline, and I just can't thank you enough for your continued support, and let's keep paying the mission forward. When life gives you a reason to stop. This is the strong why that can overcome any how. Persistence is where everything gets tested in your life. Most people quit when they're in the messy middle, not at the beginning, not at the end, but right in the middle, right in the thick of it. It's when their progress slows down. It's when their excitement fades on what they're doing. It's the results that don't match the effort. Persistence is choosing not to abandon yourself, even in those moments of the messy middle. What are you built to be? What are you built to become? The time is now. The time is right now. You weren't built to break. You were built to be something greater. Welcome to Season 2 of the BTB Project. I'm your host, Kollman. I was the overweight kid, the one counted out, lost 100 pounds, found purpose in the pain, and turn my setbacks into a story worth telling. This podcast isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about identity, discipline, and comebacks. Getting up one more time and becoming who you're always meant to be. If you're ready to go deep, do the work, and live out what you're built to be, you're in the right place. Let's lock in, let's rise, and let's get to work. Welcome back to the BTB Project. I'm your host, Kollman Gearhart. And if you've been walking through the blueprint with me, you know that this hasn't been about trying to make quick fixes in our life or just this surface level motivation. As we've progressed through the blueprint, you've been able to study your story. You've decided who you want to become. You've prepared your environment. You've put the right people around you to go after this goal, change, dream, or ambition in your life. And you've began imperfectly. You're not trying to be always right. I know you're certainly not trying to be always wrong, but you've started. You've put in the work. You've consistently, day after day, have been putting in the reps towards your goal. You've learned how to save what's mattered, how to make sure that you're putting bookmarks into your progress. You've slowed down enough to listen, to be attentive to your environment, to be present, to not be too far behind and not too far ahead. And in the last episode, you remembered how to smile authentically along the way, giving yourself some credit so that you're preventing burnout and you're being someone that's memorable and extraordinary. And now we've arrived to the next step. Persist. Persist. This isn't about hype. This isn't about grinding forever. This is about who you chose to be when life gives you a reason to stop. This is the strong why that can overcome any how, the infamous Simon Sinek quote that I often use throughout the podcast, because that quote is so prolific that there's so many hows, there's so many mountains that we want to try to climb in our life, but it's our why, a strong foundational why that can overcome anyhow. Persistence is where everything gets tested. So, what does persistent really mean? Because I've had people, coaches, mentors, teachers, often in my life say, Kollman, you just got to be more persistent. When I was younger, I didn't quite understand what that meant. And what I've realized over the years is it isn't a blind effort. It isn't pretending things don't hurt when things get tough. It's staying connected to your why when your results aren't going the way that you want, when they're slowing down, when you feel like you've come up against a challenge and it makes you doubt what you're doing. It's continuing forward when progress becomes quiet. It's choosing commitment even when motivation disappears. Have you ever felt like, especially around the new year, January 1st hits, you might have some New Year's resolutions. And when January 1 hits, you notice a lot of things going on in the world. You see the gyms getting full. You see the churches getting full. You see people adapting and adjusting their diet at work. You see someone walking around with a celery stick instead of a popsicle. These are the types of things where people want to make these changes. But the moment they hit one bump in the road, one roadblock, they deviate, they shift. And that's why persistence is so important. It's the decision to keep showing up no matter the circumstances. I remember persistence very vividly in my life. And if there's one word that defines the BTB project, the BTB story, it's persist. From being called Big Teddy Bear, being overweight, depressed, anxious, making that decision to go for a run that were in shoes that were far too big for me to wear. I knew that they weren't going to fit, but I had so much pain in my life. I had to go do something to have an outlet. So I decided to run. This wasn't strength in that moment. This was pure survival. I was running away from who I have become. I didn't love myself. I questioned what I was capable of because I felt like the whole world and the people that I loved the most were defining who I was, and it was exactly who I didn't want to be. When I went on that run, I was in pure survival mode. So persistence actually ended up showing up later, well after that run, quietly. It showed up when I kept training and making these changes to my body, even though people told me I would never be able to play college tennis. I listened to coaches who said, no, you're not good enough. This sport isn't for you. You're too heavy, you're too flat-footed, but I kept working anyways. I lived in an abandoned women's shelter. First tennis academy I was ever able to attend out in Litchfield Park, Arizona. Eating 1,300 calories a day, training 6 to 8 hours a day in the Arizona heat. No one applauded me during that season. No one validated that sacrifice. I was just being persistent. And then persistence showed up again in a different way. When my mom's addiction pulled into adulthood too early. My mom took her first drink when she was 12, and by the age of 52, it had consumed her life to the point after 4 rehabs that she wasn't going to be able to turn back. And I remember being the one having to take her to rehab. I remember how it fractured my family. I remember the emotional support that I had to become in my teenage years because our family needed a support system at that point. And I didn't see it from anywhere. So at 16, 17, 18 years old, there I was becoming a support system far too early before I was ready to be that. That support system was being persistent through the responsibility that I had to take care of my mom, to help family. And then that's when life hit the hardest. Losing my mom at 20 years old, making the decision that no child should ever have to make, pulling life support when she was in a vegetative state because she said she never wanted to be kept alive by medical equipment if she was ever in a state like that. Hearing her final words, go help people. Persistence changed and shaped that day. It wasn't about chasing dreams anymore. It became about honoring a purpose, an obligation, a commitment that I had in my life. And then I remember again having another adverse moment, a tumor in my spinal canal that ended my college tennis career. I remember the surgery 24 hours later. I remember the complications with my bowels and bladder and trying to finish grad school in diapers. I remember trying to learn how to walk again, having neuropathy in my left foot, losing control of my body. It was testing every ounce of my ability to still be persistent. Most people would have stopped believing in that moment altogether. But by the grace of God, it was persistence that I was tapping into to help me the long way. That doesn't mean that you're unbreakable. It means you kept moving. You kept putting one foot after the other, even after you're completely broken. Everybody thinks that when they're on their BTB journey, their goals, dreams, and ambitions, that it has to be this perfect road. And that's why most people aren't persistent. Here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. Most people quit when they're in the messy middle. Not at the beginning, not at the end, but right in the middle, right in the thick of it. It's when their progress slows down. It's when their excitement fades on what they're doing. It's the results that don't match the effort. Well, I hear this a lot from clients. Coach, I'm putting in all of this effort and I'm not seeing the results. And this is 2 days after starting to work with somebody. Life stacks obstacles back to back. It's not if, but when. They're going to stack. That's usually when people say, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I misread the signs. Maybe I'm thinking that this plan that I have is too good to be true and I'm not worthy of it. Maybe I should just try something else. Maybe I should quit. Persistence is choosing not to abandon yourself even in those moments of the messy middle. I talk a lot about self-reflection, alignment, understanding who you are, being able to look at yourself in the mirror. There's a very specific intent behind that. Because if you can't look at yourself in the mirror and believe and trust and have hope in that person that you see, how can you expect to survive and persist through the messy middle? I want to help you with this. So let's tackle some framework that you can use in your life to help be more persistent. I want you to pull out that BTB Blueprint journal. On the top of the page, you're going to write persist. We're going to walk through 4 anchors that can help you reflect on what persistence really means in your life. Number one is purpose over mood. We're not going to get trapped in our feelings anymore. I want you to ask yourself, why did I start going after my goals when this felt impossible? Feelings are very real. As human beings, as flesh and blood, we are going to feel. That's inevitable. But feelings change. Your purpose doesn't. So what's that anchor? What's that purpose? Why did you start when you felt like this was impossible? Number two, progress over perfection. Finding ways to keep moving. Ask yourself and think about that persistence doesn't require winning every day. It's important to recognize that you're making progress. That's why I'm a firm believer in 1% better every day. But sometimes that 1% is by reframing some of the failures, some of the setbacks, and still wanting to keep going. It requires you to stay with the plan, to stay in the game. Just because you go out and miss the shot doesn't mean you take off the jersey and leave the court. So make sure you realize that second anchor, progress over perfection. Number three is patterns over moments. Don't judge your journey by a bad week. Don't judge your journey by a mistake, a failure. That might be one chapter of your journey, but it ain't the whole book. Look at the direction over time. Some of the most successful companies, some of the most radically impossible historic feats I've ever seen in human history are typically done over a period of time, are typically done failure after failure after failure, while still maintaining enthusiasm and still proceeding to move forward. Patterns over moments. Anchor 4, people over isolation. I don't know about you, but when things start going the way that I want, I tend to isolate. I tend to get embarrassed. I tend to think of, why would anyone want anything to do with me if I'm just always making these mistakes? But putting yourself around people who help keep you grounded when you want to disappear, people that will lift you up and encourage you when you feel down, when you don't have the energy to look at yourself in the mirror. That's why we have collaboration in our lives. That's why we have a BTB community. Persistence is rarely heroic. It's relational, it's repetitive, and it's quiet. Put yourself around people that will lift you up. Now that you have those 4 anchors in your journal, let's talk about how this is applicable to your life, in business, in leadership, on your Built to Be journey. Persistence isn't just personal, it's professional. In business, I often see that persistence builds trust. Persistence creates reputation, and persistence compounds effort. When I've had success in my sales career, it's not because people recognize me for stopping after the first 1 or 2 no's. It's the persistence to keep going. Are you able to keep going to build that credibility and trust in your life through persistence? In leadership, it's teams that don't need perfect leaders. The best influencers in my life are ones that are unbelievably imperfect. They've had blemishes all over their life, but they've learned from those mistakes. It hasn't defined them. What's defined them is how they've overcome in life. If you're a parent, your kids don't need a flawless mom or dad. They need present ones. They need ones that are in there in that moment. If you're a child, your parents don't need you to be this perfect kid that's getting 100% on that last test or a perfect score on the SAT. That's not who they want. They just want you to be present. They want you to be persistent. They need persistence in life. Persistence is how credibility is built when circumstances aren't ideal. That's why this step is so important, because we have to have something to anchor when things don't go the way we want, because it's not if, but when things go the way we don't want them to. So how is being massively persistent going to change your life? Well, let me tell you this. Persistence isn't about proving anything. When I look back on my life and the things that I was able to overcome, knowing what I know now, I wasn't trying to prove anything. It was all about staying connected to who I wanted to be and to who I was becoming. That was my goal, my dream. When you're looking at your BTB journey, that is yours. It's already been proven. You are good enough, but it's persistence and taking action every day that's going to get you to where you want to go. You're not always going to feel strong. You won't always feel clear. You won't always feel inspired, but you can always choose to persist. This blueprint wasn't designed to make life easy. I hate to break it to you. It was designed to make you durable. It was designed to make you calloused, not towards the people that love you the most or your support system, but callous towards all of the noise, all of the things that detour you from who you want to become. You are built to endure. You are built to adapt. You are built to continue to inspire, to influence, no matter your circumstances. This is the anchor step. Step 9, persist. Listen. If this BTB Blueprint episode inspired you, do me a favor, like and subscribe to the BTB Project. I love seeing the comments, the thumbs up. It helps keep me going, if I got to be honest. And it's through persistence, this step, that everyone here is going to change a lot of lives. And send this to a family member or friend that needs to hear that encouragement today. As always, I'm proud of each and every one of you. And until next time, take care.